Hey y'all. Hello, hello, hello. Real quick before we get started, make sure y'all drinking y'all's water. I got like 64 ounces left. I'm behind today, so make sure you're drinking your water. I do a gallon a day. I got some catching up to do. But I say all that to say, believe it or not, and it's crazy like when you reflect back on things, you amaze yourself with how far you've come. Believe it or not, I used to struggle with alcohol abuse. And in the moment, I thought I had it under control, right? I was like, oh, I'm not that bad. Like, I'm not driving while drinking, so it's fine, right? You try to convince yourself that it's not as bad as people are telling you that it is. And now that I reflect back on it, it was pretty bad. And I would say I started trying to change that when I hit 30. I'm 33 today. Well, not literally today, but I'm 33 years old now. And it started in my mid 20s. At first, and that's the thing, like in the moment, I was like, well, everyone drinks in their 20s. Like, you're still new to drinking, right? And it wasn't like it was just drinking while I'm out. It started that way, but that's not how it went. It started with drinking while I was out, being in college. In my early 20s, you're allowed to drink, 21, right? It's great. But it was really at that time just for partying and being out and about, happy hour type stuff, just like validation, like, yeah, I can drink. And once I started working full time at a job that was towards my degree, everything was good. I wasn't really drinking like that anymore because I was trying to be like a responsible adult. And I lost my grandma 8 months into starting that job. And my grandmother was like my second mom. Honestly, I was closer to her than I was with my mother. And that's because my mother always worked. And my grandma was like there to babysit us. She was there to help us with our homework. She was always picking us up from school, taking me to and from. Like, she was the person that I saw all the time growing up. So me and her were like this, and I was her oldest grandchild, so we were really like this, like this. And I would tell her everything. Like, I've never been in like a two-parent household where I had like my mom and my dad. So, but I would imagine that if you were in a two-parent household, there's probably like things that you would tell your mom or your dad that you wouldn't tell the other. And with my grandma, it's like I would tell her everything. Anything that was like embarrassing, anything where I knew I was gonna get in trouble. She just had a way of making me feel like it was okay. And she had a way of letting me know she wasn't judging me. So we were like this. I would call, and when I went off to college, like, gosh, I would call her like 3 and 4 times a day. Like, it was crazy. She would answer the phone. She'd be like, Jasmine, don't call me anymore unless it's an emergency. Like, me and her were like this. But anyways, so 8 months into starting my job, she died. And that was the first time I experienced grief. My family is very small. So, I'm blessed in the sense that I haven't experienced grief until then. Like, I was older, but it still hit just as hard. And I didn't know how to deal with it. I had never experienced loss like that before. I didn't know what to do. And honestly, I felt guilty because as she was getting more and more sick, I stayed away. And it was through counseling and healing that I realized that the reason why I was drinking like that was because I was trying to mask how I felt. And how I felt was I wasn't there for her like I should have been, like I know she would have been for me, because I didn't like seeing her deteriorate in front of me. Like, it was just something I couldn't handle, right? So, anyways, she passed, and I didn't cry. Like, I didn't cry. It's like it didn't hit me right away. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I saw it. I saw her lifeless in the hospital bed, but it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, if you lost someone before, let me know down in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. It's like sometimes it just doesn't hit you. And so I was, just carrying on like everything was good. Uh, it was weird. But anyway, so went back to work after a couple of days and was just trying to act like everything was good. Meanwhile, I hate this job and they're really starting to fuck with me, right? And it was just like all of that plus loss of my grandma. And I just started to drink again. But it was no longer like socially and being out and about. I would just have a drink with dinner. And at first it was like some wine, which at that time I was like, oh, I mean, everyone has a glass of wine with dinner, right? And then like I didn't wine. I just felt like I was buying too much. Like it's crazy how you just like kind of make up things in your head. But I was like, well, a cheap bottle of wine, it doesn't really last you that long. So I'm just gonna go to the ABC store and just get like vodka and make my own mixed drink. And that's what it started off as. I was just going to the store, I think they're like a fifth. I would get a fifth of Smirnoff, and I would get little Dole pineapple juice, canned juices, the little ones. And I would just take a couple of ice cubes, put in there, and have it on the rocks. I would only put like one or two shots in there, and that would be my drink. And I would just bring that drink with me throughout the house until it was time for bed. I would just sip on it, right? And when I started doing that, it would take me like 2 weeks to go through a fifth. Like it still wasn't like that bad, right? And over time of not dealing with the loss of my grandma and more stress on my job and wanting to quit, but not knowing how am I going to pay my bills? This is the only job I felt like was going to pay me enough. I just felt really trapped. And so, when I first started buying the vodka, it would be like twice a month. I would go to the ABC store and get it because it would last 2 weeks. And over time, I noticed that one glass or that one cup, used to put in a red cup. That one cup would turn into one and a half. And so when I would wake up the next morning, like I wasn't like passing out like in the middle of nowhere. Like I knew I was going to bed. Like I would go to bed. I would lay in my bed, but I would still have a little bit left over. So it turned into one and a half cups. And then from there, it turned into 2 cups a night. And from there, instead of going to the ABC store every other week, I was going every 4 days. I was going through that bottle of vodka, the big Smirnoff bottle, 4.5 days tops. And instead of me waiting until after dinner or during dinner to drink, it turned into as soon as I got home. I would get home around like 5 and I would start drinking until I went to sleep. And then instead of it turning into, or instead of it being like, okay, I'm going to bed now and carrying my ass to bed, I would fall asleep on the couch. And it just like gradually got worse. And then it had even got to the point where we used to be able to leave work for lunch. And I would go to like a restaurant and have one or two drinks while on lunch and come back. And I would just put like some breath mints in my mouth, spray myself, and I would just carry on. And I did that. And so basically, I was drinking multiple times a day at that point. And it, I started to get nauseous the next day because it was like too much on my stomach. And I quit. I finally gained enough courage, quit my job, but I was still, now I'm working from home. And instead of it just being, a drink during lunch and, a drink at night, it turned into all day. I probably would go through 3 cups of my mixed drink throughout the day. I always had a buzz. And I could never go anywhere and not drink. Like I was known as the family member. Like I always say, why would you go to a restaurant and not have a drink? Like what? Like that's literally what I would say. And it was getting to be too much. And especially when I was working from home. And then instead of going to the ABC store every 4 days now, it was turning into every 2 days. I was going through a fifth of alcohol within 2 days. Within 2 days. And it was a lot going on. I was starting my business. I started to realize like I wasn't really able to focus as much because I was always buzzed. And I had like a breaking point. I didn't have too many friends in the first place, but everyone was kind of like falling off. The few friends that I had, they were like falling off. We were just going in 2 different paths. I was going on this entrepreneurial journey and I couldn't relate to being at work anymore, right? I wanted to do this, they wanted to do that. So you know how sometimes friendships just clash because there's no longer a convenience factor anymore. Like, oh, we both work together, so that's why we're friends. It kind of was like that. Like we just no longer have the same interests, right? And so I no longer had any friends. And I was using my friends as a way to distract myself from things that I was dealing with internally. And when you're texting all day or talking on the phone or going out, you no longer have to think about what you're not trying to think about. And once those few people were no longer in my life, now I was literally by myself. Like I had to think about what I didn't want to think about. And I found myself crying all of the time. I was already crying all of the time while working at that job, but now it was like all of the time. And it was to the point I didn't even want to get out of bed. Like I was just really, really, really sad. And I couldn't even figure out why I was so sad. So, after months of that, I decided to go to counseling. I don't know, it wasn't like necessarily a specific incident that took place. It was more or less like, I'm tired of being sad. How do I not be sad anymore? So I called insurance, tried to get them to list off all the counselors in my area that sounded black because I wanted an African American woman, and found one based off of her name. I was like, okay, she sounds black, because they're not allowed to tell you what they are, right? I was like, okay, her name sounds black. So went to counseling, and through counseling, I started to realize that I was avoiding a lot of things. I was avoiding grieving the loss of my grandma, and I was self-medicating by drinking. And I just decided to stop. I didn't want to do it anymore. And again, you guys, I was drinking so much that like literally the next morning, like I was feeling nauseous. And I wouldn't even start drinking again until that nausea feeling went away. So around like 11 a.m., then I would start the process all over again. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to feel it anymore. I realized that drinking, as much as I was only a temporary fix, because when I would wake up in the morning, I was sad again. And when I was working, I had to wait because I couldn't go to work drunk. And so it was tough. It was tough, but I just didn't want to do it anymore. It's kind of like I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I recognized that drinking all the time was not making my problems go away. It was actually intensifying it. And that's what I noticed when I was, going through counseling and going through my healing journey, that however I felt before I started drinking was actually how I felt while I was drinking. It just intensified it. So if I was in a good mood before I started drinking, I was in an even better mood when I was drunk. But if I was already sad and depressed before I started drinking, I was even more sad and depressed when I was actually drinking. And I didn't realize that. Like, it's crazy because it's like, it's easy to say now and it doesn't make sense today, but that's literally what was going on. It literally just intensified however I was already feeling. But in my mind at the time, I thought it was fixing the problem, but it never fixed the problem. So I haven't had a drink in 3 years. I don't even crave alcohol. I don't miss it. I don't think about it. There could be alcohol in the house and I wouldn't even touch it. And would I ever drink again? That's a good question. No. I've been on a weight loss journey now for 2 years, and I've just really been locked into being the best version of myself every single day. And I realized that alcohol literally did nothing for me. And especially because I'm trying to get into the best shape of my life, now I realize that even if I was to drink, it's really going to affect my ability to perform in the gym. And I just never had a good relationship with alcohol. It was because I was trying to cover up how I felt about something. And I don't need it. I don't need it. I can sit at a table and not feel the urge to drink if there's other people drinking. Like I can go to a bar and literally just talk and mingle and not crave alcohol. But I just don't want it anymore because I remember who I was before, And in comparison to who I am today, I'm just a completely different person. And it's hard to reflect, and like I'll see, you know how like Facebook will show you like 8 years ago you posted this. It's crazy when I see those because I'm like, I don't even recognize her. You know, even though it's me, like looking at the picture or the video, I'm like, I don't even recognize her. And it's like in a lot of the pictures and videos, my signature red cup is in the background. It's just like, gosh, I always had that red cup. Like I always had that red cup in the house. Like it just followed me wherever I went. I would take it with me to the bathroom. Like I would literally just sip on it all day. And I just shake my head because I'm just like, wow, I am nothing like what I used to be in so many ways. But I wanted to share that story with you guys. You know, I never like got in trouble for it, or you know, I don't think I ever really had a physical dependence on it. I think I had more of a mental dependence on it. And I quit cold turkey. I finished my last bottle and I was like, I'm not gonna go and buy another one. And I didn't. And I haven't been back to the ABC store since. Not even to just go with someone, like if they want to go to the ABC store. Like I have not stepped foot in an ABC store in 3 years. I drive right by it. So, you know, if you struggle with some type of substance abuse, you know, I don't know what level it is on, or you know, I'm not a professional or anything, but I just want you to understand that, you know, everything you need is really within you. And I can only encourage you to go to counseling and fix your mental health, because you would be surprised at how many things affect us from our past that we didn't even realize. And a lot of times we're running away from how we don't want to feel instead of just facing it head on. And so we use these substances like alcohol, weed, drugs, food, gambling, sex. Like we use all of these things because we're trying to chase a feeling. And counseling really changed that for me. So hopefully this helps. I struggled with alcohol abuse and didn't even I never could say I was an alcoholic. Now today I can say I used to be an alcoholic. But before, like that word would just trigger me and I'd be like, no, I'm not driving while drunk. You know what I mean? I would list off what I'm not doing to make me feel better about what I am actually doing, you know? But yeah, I used to be alcoholic. So, all right, you guys, I'll see you later. Bye.